welcome to the Big Play Cleveland Show. I'm Gabriella Cruz alongside Chris McNeil, Nick Pedone. Guys, we have the solar eclipse coming up. I really love the shirt, by the way. You can get that at the Big Play store. Okay, so check it out online, bigplay.com. And Guards opening series. We can chat a little bit about that. Got to talk a little bit of Cavs. Final Four action. Are you going to visit that script sign that's got the Final Four?
Yeah, I'm going down to Edgewater right after we do the show. Early in the week, check out some of the cool happenings around downtown. You know, later in the week, I'm sure Cleveland will have a lot of things going on with the Final Four coming in, but definitely got to see everything that there is to see while the Final Four is here in Cleveland. I know the Destination Cleveland has all the little cute Final Four signs, and then they have like the big bracket that's right in the middle of the city in Public Square. So got to go check out all that stuff today.
And unlike, I think, the Portland site, I think they'll actually get the court correct right here in Cleveland. One of the many reasons we're better than Portland is that we know the dimensions for the women's game, and we'll get the three-point stripes right for every game. I am confident here in Cleveland.
Chris, I already got the text that the floor from someone on the inside. The floor is already good to go. They've ensured since the Portland slip up that the 3-point line is measured correctly. It is in the right spot and no tape or any funny business going on. They got it right.
Happen? You know, on the heels of the last few years of women sharing their experiences at the Final Four and contrasting that to the men, of the meals, the way the locker rooms look, the way the weight room looks, and then now you've got the actual physical court that is wrong. How does that happen?
At least they caught it, I guess.
Yeah, they caught it. And they're like, there's nothing we could do about it. We caught it. Is it okay with you guys if we play it this way? Sure, that's fine. I mean, I could not imagine that happening in the men's game. So I know when it moves to Cleveland, we're not going to have those kind of issues, but shame on you, Portland.
Well, what do you guys think about, first of all, how's your bracket doing? We haven't checked in.
So last week, as we know, famously, I was doing very, very well. I was up over 99%. Now, fast forward a week later, 60%.
Oh, okay. No.
So I have taken a tumble. I knew it was going to happen a little bit when I lost Kentucky out of my Final Four, and then just everything fell apart. I had Creighton, that fell apart. I still got UConn like most of the country right now, so they're going to continue to get me a few points all the way to the championship, I anticipate. But, yeah, I fell about 30 points. Wow. Over the course of the last week.
That's to be expected. No offense.
Hey now.
No offense.
I was all set. John Fanta had me all set. We saw all the paperwork I had laid out. I had a fantastic opening week, and then baseball season, you know, I guess maybe I took my eye off the ball or something, but it's gotten ugly for me.
Definitely my baseball bets are doing a lot better than my March Madness bets. My March Madness, my brackets in the garbage, my parlays garbage. At least baseball is here to rectify things. We got my no-run first innings kind of back in action, which are fan favorite from last year, because it needed it, because March Madness is not going my way at all.
I'll tell you the over-under that I did hit was getting my lawn mowed before April 1st. I did it yesterday. I beat my neighbor. Which is kind of, you know, that's big in my world, is to beat the neighborhood and beat the neighbor right next door, because I mow up to the line. I leave his side, which is a little bit higher than mine over there, and I got it done. So suburban dad.
Yeah. Is that like a passive-aggressive thing? Like, do you think the neighbor took the hint and everything? You know, like
it's more aggressive at this point, because we kind of talk about it, we chat about it, and then on Easter, I took the advantage and I went out there and I got it done. So, you know, that's really sliding underneath the radar if I'm getting it done on Easter, and that's exactly what I did.
Jesus is risen, but your grass, that was not. That you got that cut real quick.
I'm pretty proud of myself, because I went out there, sure enough, first cut of the year, battery dead. So I had to run to Walmart, get a new battery. Hey, it's easy to get this stuff done on Easter morning, by the way. If you're a divorced dad, you don't have your kids for the day, that's a good time to get your yard work done.
That's the cheat sheet right there.
I did. So I've taken a lot of L's for that in my life, but that's a big W there on Easter day.
Honestly, thanks for sharing your formula. Speaking of L's, the Guards dropped their last game of this opening series. What are you thinking about the Guardians so far?
Yeah, we'll have to talk about it. I'm excited to see what the team looks like now that we're not playing Oakland. It'll be fun to have Jensen Lewis join the show today for his normal recurring segment on our program. But I don't know. It was fun. It was really fun to start the
Yeah.
Stephen Vogt era off 3-0, and then 3-1. Whatever, losses are going to happen in a 162 game season, but 3-0 felt good.
It did.
It was the A's, so I'm excited to see what it looks like now as we get a little bit closer to Cleveland home opening day.
Stephen Kwan, power hitter now, gets a
Yeah.
home run. That was good to see. Jose Ramirez with a home run. So it's nice to see a little bit of power, a little bit of offense. Once again, it's against Oakland. Over the weekend, they were trying to give us games. So hopefully we can spin this forward, get some early momentum going, Nick, because it's a long season, and right now we're just coming into April.
It's sad, too, for Oakland. The one thing that really I couldn't get past this weekend was it was opening day, opening week, and I know that owner doesn't care. I know they're moving to Las Vegas, but it was shameful to see
the
that
attendance.
stadium as empty as it was out there in Oakland, and good on A's fans for not showing up.
Yeah.
That remarkable work, because what that ownership group has done to that city and that fan base and that organization, really, because that team is horrible. Kudos to you, A's fans, because that was disgusting.
I tweeted out a picture I took off of Bally's on Saturday, and I said there was like 200 people there. There were probably only about 50 people there at that time, and that was right before the opening pitch. So those people, I support those fans entirely. Don't go. If your owner's going to move and your owner's not committed to your city, then don't go to the games. There's no reason to give him any of your hard-earned money.
Yeah, I think that's cool. We saw that in action. Well, I want to see plenty of Guardians fans, and we really will for this Solar Eclipse Day for our home opener. What are your plans, everybody?
So
Tell me you got the glasses.
we got the glasses. My mom hooked me up with a pair of the glasses.
So what is it with the glasses? So regular sunglasses won't work?
I think
Well-
If I go out there with my pit vipers looking all sweet, then I'm going to
Who knows?
totally scar my eyes for life.
I don't think you're ever supposed to actually look at the sun, so disclaimer there. But they're saying, Gab, what I'm curious to see, so people don't know we record this show at Burke Lakefront Airport Monday mornings.
Right.
How is it going to look like the traffic scenario? People are saying downtown because this is the area of the world where the eclipse is at totality.
Right.
So people are going to be flocking down to Cleveland. Are we going to be able to get in the studio for the eclipse? Are we going to be able to do the show next week? And then you got opening day and the craziness onto that. That's kind of all the chatter. I think that's kind of just overblown though. I think people are kind of going a little bit too crazy. I don't think it's going to be that nuts. I think we're going to be able to cruise in here. I think we're going to be able to do the show. And then I think we're going to be able to bend out of here, miss all the opening day craziness, and be back at my house to watch the eclipse and then opening day.
Knock on wood on all of that, by the way. Because if it is like the apocalypse out there trying to get up to the studio and fight our way in through Cleveland, then I'm not going to be happy. And I'm going to remember this conversation where you said it's all going to be fine. No problem. Just all butterflies and rainbows.
I'm knocking on wood here for you, Chris.
It's gonna be a breeze.
I think it's all overblown. That's my official eclipse take. Overhyped.
Well, it is overhyped, I guess, but not. But no, because 375 years, we won't see it till then.
Yeah, it's been 7 years since the first one, since the last one, from what I understand.
Yeah, did I just not appreciate the first one? I just don't recall.
That's what I'm saying. People say 400 years to the next one. I'm like, we just had one. Not that long ago.
Right.
I remember it.
Right. Okay. Well, anyway.
We're in the path of totality here, and it's passing over the stadium, and hopefully it passes through with some magic for our Guardians down there. I could just see it. This turns into some good karma throughout this season. Maybe makes the bats come alive. The pitchers stay healthy.
Yeah.
Then we're going to look back and say, the moment the eclipse came, that's when I knew that this Guardians team was for real.
When all three of the new Progressive Field signs were glistened by the light of the new sun after the eclipse.
3 maybe on one side.
New life was born at the corner of Carnegie and Ontario after the eclipse.
The eclipse is the official initiation of this new era. So I hope you're right, Chris. I mean, really, we got all these changes going on to begin with. And speaking of, we're going to have Jensen Lewis on, as we will every Monday moving forward here, every time we got our show going. So we'll take a short break now, and we'll bring him back right after this. Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland Show. I'm Gabriella Cruz alongside Chris McNeil, Nick Pedone, and we are welcoming in our Garage Beer guest. We've got Jensen Lewis to chat Guards baseball and our opening series. You got to give us your initial thoughts.
Yeah, Gab, guys, great to be with you. And yeah, this was probably how you drew it up, albeit it would have been great to sweep Oakland. And ironically, the A's did everything possible to basically give that game away on Sunday. But I think the thing you take out of it, number one, again, knowing it's the A's, the offense coming out and really having the performance that they did in the first 3 games of that series, and even coming back in game 4, I think we're really excited about Shane Bieber's initial start. Let's see how he does for the rest of the road trip, and then also getting back onto the home side when we open up against the White Sox on Monday. Or excuse me, yeah, when you think about where the White Sox are and where that whole homestand could be, I think the fun part too, guys, is that when you talk about contending teams and teams that want to make the playoffs, you have to beat the bad teams. We know that Oakland's bad. So anytime you get an opportunity to sweep on the road, let alone a chance to do it for a 4-game set, that's as good as you could have hoped out of the chute for these guys to start the season.
Jensen, keep it in mind, this is the A's, as you said. Anything that you saw out of the offense that you think, wow, okay, that's sustainable, whether you're playing the A's or whether you're playing anyone else in the league?
Chris, it's a great question. And I think for me, I always say that April is overreaction month. So I like to try and get through that month and then really sink my teeth into where things are positively and where things are to improve on. But I think just initial headlines out of that series, what David Fry, what Brian Rocchio, what the top of the lineup with Kwan, obviously, and Josh Naylor hitting with runners in scoring position, those are really strong indicators of what could possibly be this year. You hope we can get Bo Naylor moving in the right direction here the next couple of weeks. I think with Andres Jimenez having the series that he did out of the chute is awesome. And we got a little window, Chris, I think, into where Stephen Vogt is for lineup construction. Now, anxious to see where they go for the rest of the road trip and how that all plays out here once we get back home as well. But all in all, I think the young guys being able to hit the ground running, and I'm a big fan of them starting on the West Coast too, just to keep that body clock, keep the routine the way that they've been for at least the last month or so. So excited to see some of the early returns for our young guys already.
You mentioned Bo Naylor. How do you see him splitting time with Hedges as we go along this season?
Guardians Twitter's already freaking out on us here, Jensen.
Well, I think, Gab, and guys, to answer that candidly, we know that Austin is so critical to pitch presentation, sequencing. He is a mastermind. It's a master class, really, watching him work, not only initially first time around the order, but he's so great at reading swings and realizing what guys are trying to do in the box. I think he kind of gave you the answer right after Shane Bieber's first start of the first game of the year is we're just waiting for the hitter to tell us what to throw. And it's so true for those of us who have been through that is the hitter's going to give you basically what they do well and what they're not doing well at that time. And it really is unique to have a guy in Austin who it feels like he's the Matrix, feels like he's Neo. He's just seeing code. And it's really awesome to watch him work back there. I think for Bo, and again, I'll go back to where we're going to get a window into what Stephen Vogt likes to do here in the first 3, maybe 4 weeks of the season. Is it, just matching Hedgie up with Biebs every 5th day? Is that going to be kind of that personal catcher situation there? Remains to be seen how that all works out. But, I mean, the numbers don't lie, guys. You look at the Hedgie's ERA, and even with Biebs in there, it's pretty damn good. And that every 5th day to have that symmetry and synergy of those two guys working together, I think is something that you'll probably see moving forward.
Shane Bieber was awesome in that opener. That was probably the best that we've seen him in quite some time. A lot of people are asking, is vintage Shane Bieber back? We saw him add a couple miles per hour on some of that stuff, which is always encouraging to see, especially for a guy that we thought, was entering some of the later years of his career. What are your thoughts on that opening performance from Shane Bieber?
Nick, the first thing that came to mind was it's the only thing I want from the pandemic year is Shane Bieber coming back and really being that guy out from start number 1 for an entire domination, really, of 2 months during 2020. And I think you saw shades of that with not only the fastball velocity in the late life, but really the crispness and the late movement of the curveball, of the cut fastball. I think adding the changeup to something that can kind of go away from left-handers into right-handers, it's just going to expand the plate to allow him to really maneuver a bit more and have a bit more room for error too. So Nick, I'm right with you, man. I think we were all jacked up again. The disclaimer is it is Oakland. If he, is doing this the rest of the road trip and in the first couple of weeks of the season after they get home, I think we can have a lot of buy-in from here on out.
So we know Oakland is Oakland. This week we've got the Mariners, and then we've got the Twins. Talk a little bit about those couple of series we got coming up and what the Guardians should expect.
Yeah, Chris, Seattle going to throw out arguably the best pitching staff, I think, in the American League, at least at the beginning of 2024. I mean, that rotation, as good as it gets, and you're going to get three big horses in that latter part of it, too, where you think about Luis Castillo, George Kirby, that the Guardians will face there in the last couple of games of that series. And then, as we know, Minnesota, even losing Sonny Gray, I think understanding how good Pablo Lopez is, I think he is definitely a candidate for the American League Cy Young this year. Knowing what Joe Ryan has been in his first couple of turns around the American League Central and how consistent he is, I think the big question now is rotation depth for the first time with Minnesota, at least in the last 3 to 4 years, is really going to be tested. And what do guys like Bailey Ober and Chris Paddock and maybe Louis Varland, what do those guys do performance-wise to be able to turn things back over to the top? Back into their bullpen, once they get Yohan Duran back, I think they'll be great. But Griffin Jacks is a great security blanket to throw in there to close games out. They're a little more beat up, I think, there in the back end of the bullpen than what they've been used to at the beginning of seasons the last couple of years. But between where Seattle is with Andres Munoz as their closer and the guys that they can run out there to shorten games along with Minnesota, this is premium pitching, guys, for the entirety of the rest of this road trip. A really good litmus test about where the Cleveland offense is at this early juncture.
Jensen, we always appreciate your insight and input, and we've done some thinking about your segment name, and a couple of us have some ideas. Let's go down the line. Chris?
Well, have you thought about this at all, Jensen? Do you have any particular names that you're fond of that you'd like to call this segment?
Yeah, I mean, again, I know I'm wearing the shirt here from GB Artwork when the Top Gun Maverick came out. So something like high flying or, something involving. I know we do the pitching thing and all that. It was something that was coming to me, but I was anxious to hear where you guys were. So lay it on me. What you got? Maybe
like as an old junk ball pitcher type, you say Jensen's junk. No, yes.
Oh man. Oh, that's gonna generate some social media response.
Jensen's junk. This was just what initially came to us like first thing when we got here. Like we just spit it out. And yours was Jensen's junk.
Right. First thing that came to mind when I think of Jensen Lewis.
Right. Mine was jamming with Jensen. We were really doing this alliteration thing. We're really hot on that. And then Nick was gonna
I got
look at
5
AI?
really bad ones from ChatGPT. I have Lewis's legends inside the dugout. I have pitching perspectives with Jensen Lewis. I have baseball breakdown, Jensen's insights. That one's not bad.
At least those are baseball related.
In the bullpen, Jensen Lewis unplugged. Okay. Diamond discussions with Jensen Lewis. So I think something Top Gun themed is probably the best than anything that any of us have.
They were just too hilariously bad for us not to tell you about it.
That is hysterical, guys. I would say leaders in the clubhouse for me are probably jamming with Jensen and Diamond discussions, but perhaps next week we come together and we have for the home opener we have that total eclipse of the heart moment where we get it all and we finally put it in there for good.
All right, cool. Sounds good. We'll figure it out then.
Should we take a break and come back with Jensen?
I think we'll take a break and then we'll get right into some fill in the blank.
Okay, perfect. Well, Jensen, thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you again next week.
You got it. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jensen.
Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland show. Jensen's junk overruled.
Overruled, Chris. It was
I didn't get
try.
any votes on that one. Man.
And the build up to sell it was strong.
Yeah.
I mean, with being, kind of an old junk ball pitcher, I thought you had a good presentation built there.
Jensen's junk. Zero Steven votes on that. Okay. The Guardians, we got to get to our fill in the blank, guys. The Guardians getting off to this hot start, or at least winning the series, is
when you're playing Oakland, it's necessary. You got to win 3 out of 4. You don't want to split with them and certainly don't want to fall underwater this early in the season. So it's good to see. You say games in March and April don't matter a whole lot. Well, guess what? For those games to matter come September and into October, then you want to win these games early on in the season. Tito was a slow starter. We want to see what Vogt can do, and we're already seeing a good start for him.
And those notorious slow Tito Francona slow starts were so grueling, Chris, because we were forced to sit in here and talk about, well, the Guardians and the Indians, back in those days, slow start. They usually start like this. When do they look to turn the corner? It's refreshing to start the season off with, winning 3 games out of 4, and then obviously optimism heading into the series against Seattle and against Chicago. I think it's a good thing, and it was a necessary thing, like you said, especially with a new manager in Stephen Vogt. And everything that we heard was that this is a guy that brought a lot of energy and a lot of youthfulness and excitement to the clubhouse. There is no way to build on energy and good vibes quite like winning. So I think having this strong start to the season was a really, really positive thing for this group as we look towards, moving here through April.
I think it's super uplifting to see that he's just so well received so far.
Yeah.
And even on Guardians Twitter, I like that it seems to be, like you said, it's a good high vibe note for us.
The coat is bad. I love the Vogt coat. He's kind of doing his own thing, and the coat is so cool. It was awesome to see him break that out in the opener.
Now, what's kind of funny is people haven't mentioned the fact that that's actually just a different model of what Ryan Day was wearing for Ohio State. So if you look, I actually bought the Ohio State one back in the day when I first saw that coat, and I was like, that's awesome. This is just a lighter weight Nike version of that coat, and you see it all over the place, but I like how Vogt's made it his own.
And the Vogt coat, I'm pretty sure, is already sold out. So if you were going to look for a Vogt coat, you got to wait for him to restock.
Wow.
Go to the Big Play store and get that Eclipse shirt in the meantime, because the Vogt coat is nowhere to be found for a little bit.
He's a trendsetter.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got that. He kind of has that, like, I know people in Cleveland love Stefanski, but I mean, Vogt has the look of a manager that, has the look of a guy that knows what he's doing. And I think that's half the battle. I think Kevin Stefanski has that with our Browns, and I think Stephen Vogt has that going for him with the Guards.
That aura of confidence and just kind of cool.
He looks like he knows what he's doing.
Speaking of confidence, actually, I skipped ahead here. How about the Guardians player who has surprised me the most is?
Boy, I'll have to say Stephen Kwan hitting a home run, showing a little bit of power there. We're going to look for him from the top of the lineup, being really a spark plug for this team. And it's good to see him start off kind of on the right foot there. Like I said, it's kind of, you have a small sample size at this point, but it is good to see some of these guys progressing on what they had built upon last year.
Yeah, and you can't have, the outfield be as bad as it was offensively last year. That just cannot happen. They need to produce runs. They need to be on base. That's something that we came so accustomed to seeing. Stephen Kwan in his rookie year with the Guards was just always on base. Last year, a little bit of a slide. Nice to see him pick up where he left off. I'm going to go with Shane Bieber. I'm really excited to see this kind of renaissance this year. And so many people had him written off for dead and that he was, washed up maybe and potentially could be a trade candidate. We've seen the Guardians do that. I really want to see them stand by this dude, especially if we get towards the trade deadline and we're still in contention. Ride with Shane Bieber. I definitely am. And let's have some fun this year.
I'm excited about Rocchio too. He's just a little under the radar, but he was really fun to watch so far. And like Jensen pointed out, it's April, it's overreaction time, but still, you can be excited from the glimpses of goodness we've seen so far and so early this season.
And we were so worried about offense this offseason, to be able to see those sparks. Andres Jimenez having a good series there, looking like he can take this step to the next level, which we're going to need out of the center of the infield there. So very good things on the way, hopefully, as we continue on with the West Coast and then opening back at home.
Mm-hmm. On a much lower note, the Cavs have lost 8 of their last 12. They're 9-13 since the All-Star break. Donovan Mitchell was a little worked up last night. My confidence level in the Cavs right now is
can you be underground? Because mine would be underground at this point. I don't like what I'm seeing. You're getting blown out by good teams. You're barely beating the bad, AKA, or injured teams right now. This doesn't have the mojo. It doesn't have the vibe of a team that's on its way up. We just talked about the Guardians having a pretty good vibe, even though it was against Oakland. You look at the opposite right now with Cavs. What's dominating the headlines is Donovan Mitchell leaving. We got to ask Donovan. We got to ask ownership about that. And we're going through that whole saga rather than talking about a team that JB's got prepared on the floor to hit the playoffs running. I have zero confidence that that's happening. I still have questions over this team coming together even after the injuries and the rotations that JB is putting out there on the floor night in, night out. He's more concerned, Nick, with what the referees are doing than what his own team's doing on the floor.
Yeah, and that's not good. Is it bad to say, though, guys, that I just don't care? I don't. Like,
don't care.
I want to hit the fast forward button on this Cavs season and just get to round 1 of the NBA playoffs, because right now none of this matters. And the Cavs were beat up. They were injured. Donovan Mitchell is still working back from that injury, and I don't know how close to 100% he is. But none of this talk and chatter of how bad that they're playing right now is going to matter come playoff time. Come playoff time, it's a completely different animal. And we learned last year.
You're avoiding the question. So what is your confidence in the Cavs right now as we sit April 1st?
I don't have any confidence, and I don't feel like I need any confidence, because I just want to get to the playoffs, man. I want to close my eyes, and I want this bad dream to go away, that this West Coast trip we start off on a horrible note against the Denver Nuggets, and it's going to be a grueling trip with Utah Jazz, 2 nights in LA. I mean, brutal, brutal trip. I just want this all to be over so we could just get to the playoffs. This team, despite everything, is still currently the 3 seed at the time that we're recording this. They're still probably, barring some sort of crazy free fall, they're going to host a playoff series. And until then, that's all that matters, because if they win a playoff series, or 2 playoff series, if they could really catch fire, Donovan Mitchell's staying in Cleveland, and all of this becomes mute. I just want to close my eyes, get through this West Coast trip, and get into the playoffs.
Is there a little element of denial there? Okay.
Maybe.
Well, here's my question. So do you think Donovan Mitchell, for sure, like, what are these things that are being reported about the confidence of a contract extension?
Yeah, well, Bill Simmons went on nationally this morning on his podcast and said it's in the best interest right now for the Cavs to trade Donovan Mitchell.
Of course.
Which, that's kind of the national perspective, and it's been that beating drum. And I don't think, we heard Dan Gilbert last week come out and say he's fairly confident that Donovan Mitchell is going to say. Of course, what do you expect the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers to say? And to his point, for Donovan Mitchell, when he's asked in the locker room what he thinks about this whole thing, what's he going to say? Everybody's kind of playing what we expect at this point. Yep. It would be nice for the Cavs just to start winning consistently on the floor, so we're not talking about it at all. Get to the offseason, get that extension signed, and then not have to worry about this at all, other than just polishing up some trophies, right?
And that's why my take is what it is, Gab. Like, just get me to the playoffs, because if they win a playoff series, your chances of retaining Donovan Mitchell go like this.
I get it.
And I really think that this is a team that has added playoff experience guys. Niang's been to the playoffs. Struce been to the playoffs. Now the entire young core after
Tristan Thompson's been to the playoffs.
Season. Exactly. And like the young core has all been there now after last year. I really think if they get matched up against an Orlando or an Indiana, they could flip a proverbial switch like we saw in the LeBron years and play a little bit better and be able to beat a okay Eastern Conference team in a 7-game series. And then your chances of retaining Donovan are a little bit higher. And then you start to actually build blocks into the offseason instead of this just unneeded panic that's surrounding this team right now.
Virtuous cycle. That's what we need to start with the Cavs.
Yeah.
But we got to get there. We got to get through this week. We got to get through this West Coast trip. It is bad right now, but they got to find a way to just figure things out, scrape together some wins, get guys healthy, and get into the playoffs. Because the one thing that is true and that I will give you guys is you don't want to completely just stumble into the playoffs on a complete free fall. You got to have a couple of games where you're feeling good. And I like coming back home to Cleveland and ending off the year against the Charlotte Hornets and, Memphis Grizzlies, some lesser opponents once they finally get back here in Cleveland come next week.
Totally. Okay, switching gears to the NFL here. The new NFL rules are...
I don't like them at all. I don't like the hip drop rule. I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense. I do like the kickoff rule. I think that could be cool. It could bring the kickoff back a little bit, although we didn't see a whole lot of kickoffs when you go back to the XFL where they got the rule from. Didn't see a whole lot of those really come to fruition, but at least you still got that element in the game. You know, obviously we're big into Josh Cribbs here. We've got a history in Cleveland of guys like Josh Cribbs, of guys like Eric Metcalf, of guys like Gerald McNeil, great last name there, who have returned the ball. And it would be nice to have that still as an element of the game. So I'm happy they included that. But the tackling rule, Nick, I still don't understand what that's all about.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how they police it. I think it's really a good thing to promote player safety, and we saw a bunch of guys get hurt last year because of the hip drop tackle, so I get why they felt the need to implement that. I'm just curious to see how it looks. Like, if they come out week 1 and they start penalizing guys left and right for hip drop tackles, which is kind of a, up for debate. What really is a hip drop tackle? What's not? It's really when you twist your hips and you land on the player that you're tackling's legs. That's what a hip drop tackle is. But okay, what if you just regular tackle him and then land on his legs? Like, could that be classified as a hip drop? So I'm curious to see how they police it. I am also excited for the kickoff. The NFL kickoff just became useless. It was pointless. We never saw any of it. So I hope it does entice teams to get creative and do some fun stuff in the return game. I like that Andrew Berry got ahead of this and signed Nyheim Hines, who is one of the best kick returners in the league. Kind of a dying breed, but now we have one of the best here in Cleveland with this new rule. That's exciting. I would say overall, NFL new rules are to be expected. They change little stuff like this every year. I'm not going to lose sleep over it one way or another.
Cool. I hope Blank wins the NCAA tournament.
NC State, baby.
Yeah.
Give me DJ Burns. Really has turned to be the story of the tournament. I know everybody was so excited about Jack Golke and the Oakland run that really magic kind of ran out right there in that first weekend of the tournament. This DJ Burns kid is exciting. The center for NC State. Now, he was one of the top recruits of his class. He was in that Zion Williamson class, Chris. So a very highly thought of player coming out of high school. Hasn't really had the college career that anybody thought that he would. But this tournament, man, he is the story. I love everything about this dude. His family seems really cool. You had his dad up in the stands pointing to his bicep, kind of like the old Albert Bell videos. So it was awesome. And I am just pulling for this kid to finish the Cinderella story of NC State.
Well, what's nice about this story, too, is you've got the now that you were just talking about with him, with his family, and what NC State is doing. You also have the connection to history. And so much of this tournament is about history. It's about Sweet 16s. It's about Elite Eights. It's about Final Fours down through history. And you go back to Jim Valvano with NC State back in 1981, back 41 years ago, bringing this team to a Final Four and to a championship. And you think of that enduring photo and those videos of him running out on the court, looking for someone to hug. And that's one of the enduring moments of this tournament. It's nice to have a connection both with the team now and how cool this run has been for them, and then also that connection to the past. So I'm the same way with NC State. I don't want to see Alabama. I do not want to see Alabama at all. You don't go from having years of Nick Saban to all of a sudden becoming a basketball school and having some success there. I don't think it's very likely for Alabama anyway, so I'm not going to have to worry about it, but I don't want to see Bama. I'd rather see UConn over Alabama, even though that would be a huge upset. I think at this point, it's UConn's to lose, but I would love to see NC State at the end of the day be hoisting the trophy.
And I'll go with you on that. I don't want to see Purdue. I've seen enough of Zach Edey.
Fighting Zach Edey.
I am so sick and tired of him. He is just painful to watch. That he just catches the ball. I mean, the guy is 7'4". Of course he's going to get fouled. He is the textbook definition, shout out my guy Suryat, of a free throw merchant. I can't stand watching him just stand there and shoot 100 free throws every single night. I need my guy DJ Burns to save me from the evil empire of Zach Edey, because I can't watch a championship game where it's just Zach Edey shooting free throws the entire night. That'll drive me crazy.
All right, drop the mic. That's a wrap for our fill in the blank, honestly. So we're going to take another break, and we'll be back with some big play bets right after this.
Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland Show, and it's time for our Big Play bets this week. And every week on the show are presented to you by our friends at Tipico Sportsbook. And Tipico is changing the way that you bet with Tipico Cashback Rewards. The more you bet, the more you earn, the more you win. Get up to 5% cash back on the bets that you guys are already placing. If you're betting on sports in Ohio, download the Tipico Sportsbook app and get actual cash back. This isn't bonus bets. This isn't any bet credits. This is actual cash that you could withdraw right to your bank account, right to your Venmo, however you decide to do it. You got to download Tipico to hear what we're talking about, to get the cash back. You could track it on the meter right in your app. When you do use that promo code Cleveland100, when you bet $25, you're going to get $100 of bets on us when you use that promo code, and you'll get cash back on all that. You got to be 21 years or older to gamble in Ohio. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Chris, have you hit your cash back quota yet on your Tipico app?
Several times over. And you get the March Madness. I'm putting a lot of money down, so I'm getting that 5% back, which is really cool and kind of a nice addition, and gives me the ability to then turn it around to more bets, which is always a good thing.
Yeah, I've been relying on my cash back for my bets a little bit more than I would like to. You know, like you bet, I think my threshold's like $50, and it's different for everybody. But like when I bet $50, I get, a percentage of that they put right into my account, and then I got to use that little like $2-3 to just cook a crazy parlay to kind of keep me in it. I've been leaning on my cash back pretty heavy, I'll be honest. All right, let's get into some of the games that we're going to talk about this week. Obviously, betting on the Guardians was a pretty fun start, Chris, to the week. And we had that parlay that hit early that was Guardians and Cavs, which is always nice. And those are back.
What was that? What'd you stack?
Basically money line for both of them. Yeah, it's always a good day when that happens. Not as good when it happens like it did on Sunday with a couple of L's. Yes, we look for the W's here, and that's always good, and it's nice to have another option there. So if you're losing on the Cavs because the Cavs are kind of stinking right now, go on over to the Guardians, and hopefully they can turn it around. That's what you're always looking for.
And we just heard too Jensen Lewis talk about that the rest of this road trip for the Guardians is going to be, I thought, an interesting piece of what Jensen said, I should say, was that the rest of this road trip is going to be masterclass pitching because the Guardians are facing all good pitchers for Seattle and for the Chicago White Sox. We know the Guardians have good pitching. So I think a lot of these games you could start to look at the under. You could look at the no-run first inning. I know I talked about that so much last year. And I'll be honest, I've only done a few so far this year. So maybe the rest of this Guardians road trip is where I get back into my no-run first inning kind of vibe here, Chris.
You love betting that.
It's my favorite.
It's kind of like basketball, the first basket. I mean, you're kind of just putting all your chips up front. Yep. And then you sit through the rest of that game going, how am I going to make that back?
Exactly. Well, no, because the no-run first inning, think about a baseball game.
Yeah,
I want you guys
it's
at
the
home.
opposite for that.
Think about a baseball game. In a 9-inning baseball game, how many times do the runs really happen in the first inning? All you need is 6 outs.
Yeah.
And your bet hits. It's my absolute favorite bet of like any sport. So like anytime touchdown is fun. Basketball, like first basket's fun, but it never hits. No run first inning is far and away my favorite like betting category ever.
What kind of odds are you getting right now on those type of games? What's the payout?
You could find them really about even, even odds.
If you can find even on something like that, that's a good bet.
It usually favors the no-run first inning a little bit more for our Guardians just because our pitching is so good and they know that. It's usually pretty easy for a guy like Shane Bieber to get 3 outs to start the game, and then
let's kid ourselves. Our offense is not exactly respected yet either. So that's a beautiful setup for 0 runs in the first inning.
Yeah, it is an absolute fan favorite bet. And honestly, too, like you said, doing those at the actual stadium hit a little bit different too, because then you're like cheering it on in person. You just need 6 outs. And then you could quickly pivot and just live bet something else. Yeah. So it's like, if it doesn't hit, you could be like, all right, where are we going from here? So, yeah, definitely one of my favorites. All right, we are going to bet on some actual games. We'll get you guys into some Cavs action. And we told you who we want to win the NCAA tournament, but who do we actually think will win the NCAA tournament? All that and more when we return on the Big Play Cleveland Show. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland show. We're getting you guys some of our big play bets this week. Want to take a look at some of these Cavs games later in the week, Chris. Saturday, Sunday, we got 2 at Lakers and then at Clippers. Which one of those you feel better about? Because the Lakers right now are hot. On Easter, they got a 40-burger from LeBron, where he was just super efficient from the field. And then the Clippers are one of the best teams in the league with Kawhi and Paul George. If you had to pick one of those games to be Cavs money line, which they're probably going to be underdogs in both games, you like the Clippers or the Lakers?
You know, let's go with LeBron. Let's go with Donovan versus LeBron. Maybe Donovan wants to kind of show up a little bit, show LeBron, show the world, hey, there's a new dog in Cleveland. I want to let everybody know that. I am established now as a presence, and I'm going to come out against the Lakers. But in all actuality, both of these games scare me. I hate taking these long road trips, especially at the end of the season like this. Both these teams are playing really well. The Cavs are not playing very well. So I'm hoping we can find ourselves out west, kind of the same way that the Guardians found themselves out in Oakland a little bit.
The Cavs bets have been crucial, especially if you're like me. You know, I build my parlays, and then you put Cavs money line in it, and that's kind of been ruining a lot of it. You know, you stack some player props, which are cool, and Evan Mobley is playing well. You know, 2 20-point performances, even in that blowout against Denver that we just saw. Mobley still went for 20. So sprinkling him in some of the player props
has not been a question at all.
Not
We've
at all.
continued to see that defense. Now we're seeing the shooting start to come around a little bit, Nick.
That's going to be a key. I think when we look at this offseason and what the Cavs do and, you know, kind of down the road, Evan Mobley's development is a big question. And if he's able to take that leap into next year and develop an offensive game, shoot the 3 a little bit more, we're looking all right. But if things go the other direction and Mobley doesn't develop offensively like we thought, I mean, what do we really have with him?
Oh, that's exactly right. And there's not only questions around here, him, of course, Darius Garland as well right now. I mean, he's under a microscope. He's been under a microscope. Is he going to be the guy going forward for us? And I think he's the guy, if I'm going to peg anybody to really step up and who I'm looking for over this road trip, over the back couple of games at the end of the season and into the playoffs, I want to see Darius Garland. I want to root for this guy, Nick. I mean, I like his whole aura. I like everything about Darius Garland other than his play on the court. And that is driving me nuts because he's such a likable guy. He's so good with the fans, and everything I see about him is all positive. But then he goes out there, and he makes me want to pull my hair out.
We've seen it work so well.
That's it.
We've seen it work so well. Like, what happened? Why is the confidence eluding us right now? Like, I don't know. It's just an absence of confidence, really, with him.
And right now you got a Cavs team where random players are just kind of popping up and showing up for games, and that's
the Sam Merrill games are always so fun.
That's right. That's right. You got that. George Niang, he'll show up a little bit. Maybe Max Strus is now back. He'll show up a little bit. They pop in, they pop out. I want to see more consistency. Give me Donovan Mitchell. Give me Darius Garland. Give me those guys really setting it at the top, and then guys like Mobley, developing underneath.
Shout out, Gab. You fixed Niang.
Hey, I mean, listen, all we needed was a show with Niang. And actually, good news, I finally got my video back from the videographer over the weekend
Nice.
Who shot that segment. But basically, for the people who didn't know, I had him come in, had him surprise you guys. We shot a little segment together. The interview was really great. And listen, he even talked about it when he came in. He was like, hey, I got my confidence up a little, did some practice shots with Gab over at Lakewood Park. And honestly, to your point, he's been pretty good since he came in.
Since that moment, he's playing all right.
Cavs shooting coach Gabriella Cruz.
Listen, I am a professional hype woman. You guys can't underestimate.
All right, when we return, we're locking in our final 4 predictions on the bracket. Brackets are in the garbage, so we'll build some new parlays. Don't go anywhere. More Big Play Cleveland show right after this. Welcome on back into the Big Play Cleveland show. We are wrapping up our bet segment presented by Tipico Sportsbook. Download Tipico, use promo code Cleveland100. You're going to get $100 of bets on Tipico to lock in these picks with us. It is Final Four time. NC State, Chris, the dream run. They are 9.5-point underdogs against Zach Edey and Purdue. I've won a lot of money just going NC State money line. This entire tournament, DJ Burns has been the one thing that that's kept my bankroll alive. I'm going to do it again in the Final Four. Give me NC State money line.
For the straight win. Straight win, even though you're getting the 9.5 if you want to go with the line. That's a lot of points. I'm kind of surprised because I know Purdue's played well. You know, that was tight yesterday, the game that they played. Zach Edey coming down the stretch. They put him on the line a lot. He missed a few free throws yesterday. So in terms of when you're looking at point spreads, those are the types of things you want to look at. And I think NC State is going to cover this spread. 9.5 is a lot of points. I think they're a better team than that. I think DJ Burns is going to keep this thing close. I think Zach Edey's going to drop and miss a couple of free throws down the stretch, and NC State is going to cover this one.
And then we all have UConn 11.5 minus 11.5 against Bama.
Once again, that's a lot of points. UConn has been covering this entire tournament. Double digits, doesn't matter. UConn, take it to the bank.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Big Play Cleveland show. We'll see you next week.